Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a horror movie review and I'll be having a look at The Hidden 3D. Now I didn't actually see this movie in 3D, I saw it in 2D, so I can't comment on the actual 3D part of it. But the basic story here is a very kind of sci-fi gobbledygooky sort of setup. And what it is, you have this doctor who is trying to cure people of addictions. And what she's doing, she's making these addictions manifest physically so they can be removed. And when I say manifest physically, they're kind of turning into almost like these creatures that well, the idea is that they would be then removed and destroyed. But of course, this is a horror film, so you know that ain't going to happen. So scientifically, it's a bit of a, you're thinking, what the hell? This just seems a little bit too far-fetched to begin with. But let's just roll with it and then, you know, see how it goes. So we sort of see this in the prologue, and we cut to a few years later, and the female scientist we're told is dead, and it's up to her now adult son who has inherited this lab, or this kind of like this complex that was out in the sort of middle of nowhere, which he hasn't been to since he was a kid, and haven't really sort of known still existed, and he's inherited this. And he takes a group of friends up there who are kind of thinking, well, we could sell it, or we could make it into condos and stuff. And it turns out, of course, it's not quite abandoned, and there's sort of things going on there. So, and of course they sort of investigate, and it turns out these creatures, which are basically the addictions from the previous victims, are kind of lurking around, and it's all to do with these sort of little. The science involves these kind of bugs. And they're using this venom in these bugs. It's got some really crappy CGI, cartoon-looking bugs that are sort of flying around, and some of the sort of the sort of CGI, the kind of buildings and stuff as well. It looks really, really bad. So obviously these guys are all wandering around. They're sort of attacked by these sort of monsters, basically, who are kind of in the form of these kind of faceless, quite scary-looking sort of zombie-looking kids. And if you've ever seen the movie Dead Birds, they kind of look a little bit like that. If you've seen that movie, anyway, I won't sort of go too much more into the plot in case you haven't seen it. Suffice to say, this movie really is your generic horror film in regards to how it plays out. The people who survive, you can guess within 10 seconds of this movie starting up who are the ones that are going to survive and who is cannon fodder. No surprises there. There are a couple of jump scares, and although I have some issues with the visual effects and kind of these sort of bugs that you keep see flying around, some of the effects on the monsters are reasonable, but I mean you see them in kind of shadow a few times, and you just know what's going to happen. But nevertheless, they don't look too bad sometimes. But when you get to the sort of second half of the film, they're just kind of wandering around, and they kind of lose their sort of scariness to a certain degree. I did quite like some of this sort of the kind of lesser characters. Basically this guy turns up with these sort of a group of people, and two of which are these friends. And I actually found his friend character, I forget the actual character or the actor's name, but I found he quite funny and quite kind of likeable guy. And I was sad that he was just really a supporting character. I found him much more relatable, much kind of more of a natural person. And I'll be honest, the acting in this movie is whilst it's not terrible, it's subpar. I mean, this film is just very generic. I mean, you've seen it, wandering around dark corridors. You know when the scares are going to happen. You know who's going to get picked off. You can probably guess even what order. So don't expect anything, too surprising. It's not a supernatural film, really. It's more of a scientific horror film, but it kind of looks like it should be more of a sort of supernatural film. It's not bad. I mean, I don't think it was a terrible movie. It's just really unsurprising and very, very exactly what you're going to expect. So special effects, I have to say, probably not so good for the most part, and that it's ruined really by some sort of really terrible CGI. So occasionally CGI is okay, but overall, I would say, again, subpar. Anyways, I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 10. It's certainly not bad. I would say probably just below average, so 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment. I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.